Right, I'm with Ari Sussman, CEO of Collective Mining. CNL is the symbol on the NYSE Amex and the TSX Big Board in Toronto. Ari, how are you today?
I'm awesome, Robert, and how are you?
I'm good too. It's great to be here. It's great to speak to you. Colombia, there's a lot going on in Colombia right now. I'm not super well versed on it. I think you are. So I'm really interested to learn from you about what's going on in this apparent assassination attempt. It looks like this politician may not make it. What's going on?
Well, I would describe Colombia today as a tinderbox, what that is exploding in places, and the cause of that, is the current president Petro. It's the first time in the history of the country that a left-wing president was elected to lead the country. Believe it or not, it's his term. In Colombia, by the way, you're only allowed to be in power for one 4-year term, and his 4-year term comes to an end in May 2026. That's when the next election is. Okay, and in Latin America, the pre-candidacy era, or the candidacy era, starts about kind of 1 year before, and here we are. We're in June of 2025 with 11 months to go. Why I say it's a tinderbox is President Petro is verbally explosive in the media and on social media. It's worth following him on X to see a different side. He's like Trump on steroids on the left, and I don't want to say
he's like Trump on steroids on X.
Yes, like it's out of control. But you have to understand, Colombia. It's like Colombia is the inverse of us in the U.S. Okay, so let me paint the picture. The media is all right wing, so it's the exact opposite of our media, which is generally left. Yes, there is a left outlet, of course, but the left outlet is like a standalone, like Fox is kind of the main one on the right, and everything else is the opposite. Okay, and so he's being attacked constantly by the media, rightly and wrongly. In many cases, it can be wrong too. And his only outlet to lash out is through social media, and he lashes out. But man, is it a soap opera, and is this guy controversial? Okay, so first off, let me say this. Collective Mining, our company, we have a great relationship with this government. We're politically neutral. But, if you believe what you read, on the media about President Petro, he's apparently a drug addict and an alcoholic. He disappears for days on end, doesn't show up. There's been pictures, whether they're true or not, of him, as walking with transvestites in Panama, like, disappearing at government events in Paris, climate accords, like, so this has been wild. But he lashes out against his opponents very aggressively, and that's what's created this tinderbox syndrome. The candidate, Miguel Uribe, that was shot, and as you said, it may pass away. I suspect you will. He was shot in the head twice. Was shot by a 14 or a 15-year-old kid who has said he did it for the money, like trying to support his family from a poor family. Like that's what it was. But who funded him, we don't know, to do this. It's a big loss. The candidate was the leader of the party named Centro Democratico, which is a right-wing party, and his name, as I mentioned, was Miguel Uribe, not to be confused with the president Alvaro Uribe from 2000 to 2008, who's credited with turning around Colombia. Okay, not the same. Let's say the Uribe in Colombia, by the way, is like Smith, right, as a surname here. It's very common, but that's the same party. And is that the party that I think, in my opinion, had a chance to win? I don't think so. Okay, I think that party was too right wing to win the next election. But the problem in Colombia, is right now, I believe it's something like 70 candidates have their name in the hat to be president. So it's not like what we're used to here, where we've got really two parties and then a couple of fringe parties that throw a name in, like independents or libertarians. There's 70 candidates. They need to figure out which party they're going to align with. That number will ultimately whittle itself downwards to probably something like 30 over the next few months. And what I suspect will happen, a May election will take place. Someone will win from the left, someone will win from the right. They'll go to a runoff because neither will be a clear winner. Never happens. And then I strongly believe whoever the right candidate is going to win, and win by a lot.
So thinking back to 2022, I recall following that presidential, runoff, and there was like the Trump wannabe who was the competition for Petro, this older guy from the north, I think. And he almost won. It was a dead heat until the final moments. It was a very small margin of victory. So in Colombia, you win the presidency by a razor thin margin, especially today. So this, like you said, it's up for grabs. There could be like 10 different people that could be the next president, right?
More. There's a lot of candidates, but it'll go to a runoff. I suspect, though, on that runoff, you're going to see the whomever on the right, and personally, I hope it's more to the center, but whoever on the right side, I think, is going to win by quite a lot. Believe it or not, I think what happened in Colombia is the elitism, of the wealthy got to its own head. And so the voter turnout was not good in the last election from the right. In addition to that, there were centrists that voted left, believing some of which now turn out to be false promises of the current president, that there would be a change. So you had right voters actually taking a shot at going left, to see what would happen. And I can tell you from the limited conversations I have, every one of them, people regrets it badly. Right. And that's because the economy's been sputtering, other than tourism, which has nothing to do with the government. That's booming. The promises of cheap electricity to the impoverished part of the country never materialized. Right. The reduction in the work week, labor reform never materialized, health reform never materialized. This president has gotten nothing done. And so it's been good for mining, to be frank, excluding coal and oil and gas, because there was a green energy transition model in place, but very supportive of mining, the rest of it. And I think there's been 8 licenses issued, believe it, under this government, right, in only 3 years. So it's positive. But for other areas of the country that doesn't affect us directly, it has been horribly negative, including poverty, including jobs, and you name it. It has not been a good time. And look, the president has I think I just saw yesterday, 64% disapproval rating. That's extraordinarily high. That's pretty much the worst any president's ever had in Colombia. So we're changing governments. You have to change it. You can't have the same president no matter what. He can't run again. But his party will not make it to the next round. There'll be another left party, which probably, I'm going to speculate, will be more moderate left, and then there'll be a right candidate, which, as I said, hope is middle right somewhere, and then we'll have a nice race.
It's very interesting that Petro was able to ascend to the presidency of Colombia, because I know some of the history, and this guy was actually a former terrorist, 30, 40 years ago. He helped bomb the Capitol building in Bogota. So it's like, but then again, here we are in the US, and we have Trump as president, and we know some things that happened in the past. It's just funny how these people can reinvent themselves. But, the reality is, when somebody gets to be 60 or 70 years old, they're not going to change. So you have the track record, you have the evidence for who they are. We're just fooling ourselves by thinking they're going to show up different,
Yeah, and he's just, he's a very eloquent speaker. He can go in a lot of directions very quickly. What happened is, when he became president, the country then realized quickly that he has no skills to be a CEO or the chief commander, right? So he, as an operator, he's a disaster, and that's what's happened. So everything fell apart as a result of his lack of ability to hire good people, to create a plan, to run with it, to convince people of his policies. So he just failed in the operations side. But he's a soap opera worth following, a good speaker. It's going to be tense for the next 11 months But the government will change, and I think you can bet on Colombia being somewhat of a situation like Argentina, where it's going to go from bad optics to amazing optics, with an election. And the thing in Colombia is that people forget is the rule of law is amazing, right? It's the oldest democracy in South America. It's the only country that's never had military coup, always had its elections on schedule every 4 years in good time, in war times and in peace times. And the system works. So even with a kooky president now, he hasn't been able to do anything, pass legislation that's nuts, because it gets stopped by Congress, Senate, or Constitutional Court, or all of the above.
Gridlock, which is generally pretty good for business. That's
Yes.
like already established, right?
What is negative in Colombia, and we need to be honest, the big negative is not where we are, thankfully, but we're in a pocket of amazingness. But in parts of the country, the security's gotten worse with this guy. I mean,
I was just about to ask you that, because
that's the problem.
I've been to Colombia at least 4 times. I've been all over the country back during the 2019 to 2023 period. I haven't been in the last couple of years. But my experience from my visits to the country was it was very safe. Now, I didn't do any drugs. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't putting myself in compromising spots. I'm sure bad things could have happened, but I felt safe. And in areas where maybe it was a little bit less safe, I saw soldiers with assault rifles. So that made me feel safe. So what's changed in the last couple of years?
So all that's still the same in the major cities, okay? So nothing's changed, okay? The cities are safe. Yes, obviously a political candidate got shot, but that wasn't, there's not, the crime rate on the average citizen isn't skyrocketed. It's in the rural areas that the problem has exploded with security. So places that you wouldn't go, but mining companies might like to go. Like, I tell people, I get calls sometimes from juniors thinking of entering Colombia, and I say, look, I know the map's not exact, but just take the bottom half of the country and don't go there yet, right? It's just too rural, not enough population, not enough institutionality, and therefore security is a problem, and that's where the thugs are operating. And so it's gotten worse, and you're seeing murders of innocents in those rural areas increasing. And that's the problem. But and this assassination attempt probably likely will end up as an assassination in a few days or sooner. I believe will serve well. Unfortunately, will serve well whichever candidate runs against the left, because running on a platform now of improved security is going to be a winning platform, in my opinion. And the public forces want it. The public forces do not like the current government. They're against it. Okay, so everyone wants this to improve.
And in Latin America, that's like that theme is sort of, in the water. If we look at, other countries like Argentina or El Salvador, this is in the water. You want a strong leader who's going to make people feel safe and crack down on the crime, right?
And remember that Colombia has the most sophisticated public forces in LatAm by far, right? Because we fought a war on drug, which I think is basically over at this point, but we fought it for, God, it's got to be, 30 years, very hard. And so everyone in Colombia has training that is highly unusual relative to its neighboring countries from us. Right, so sophistication with equipment, sophistication with surveillance, intelligence. I mean, this is a smart country that knows how to lock down security if it's given the green light, and if the government's willing to pay, proper wages to these people that are in public forces. It's the best at it in Latin America. So it's a situation's wonderful for a year from now, the setup.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that. So let's talk about CNL. So a bit of news here in June. Let's start with the one from June 2nd. At Apollo, you have drilled into high-grade tungsten, copper, gold, and silver. Tell us about that.
So the Apollo system, which I know spans vertically about 1.2 kilometers, or call it roughly 0.8 of a mile, and remains open at depth. It's getting wider at depth. But if you were to look at a section of it, you can break it from the top to the deepest part into 4 area zones, or four metal zonation areas, okay? And the top one, which covers about 150 meters, or 450-ish feet from surface, right, is enriched with tungsten, copper, gold, and silver. Okay, the tungsten is unusual with some nuances to it, but the tungsten is not from porphyry metal at all. We believe it's some event related to the contact between the host breccia and the country rock that's created this chemistry for tungsten to come in. We have scheelite, so there's really 2 tungsten minerals in the world. One is scheelite, one is wolframite. Scheelite is the one you want because it doesn't have impurities attached to it. It's lower grade, but without impurity problems. Very easy to separate. You're not going to get 100% recoveries of tungsten, but if you look at operations globally that produce scheelite, you're kind of looking between 70 to 80% recoveries, making a very clean concentrate. And tungsten is a great one because it's highly critical, right, for the Western governments. It's one of these commodities that China controls 80% of the global market, and they have been not selling much of it or any of it at all to the West. And guess what? It's used in many things, but in weapon manufacturing. I mean, it's one of the most important inserts into bullets and to bombs and all these things. And look what's going on in the world right now. Right, so the need for this is high. And the other thing about it, which is so important, it's not poisonous. Because I know other companies are running around talking about, we've got antimony and we've got arsenic, and and those are also critical. But man, those are poisonous, and those are deleterious elements, that generally penalize you and are problematic. And maybe there's a need for them right now. But I wouldn't want to be mining antimony or arsenic for the long term. I think you got, that's run away and hide. Tungsten is inert, right? So we're not dealing with dangerous to handle material. I don't believe that it's not a huge market globally, but I don't think we need a primary tungsten mine, in the United States to supply. We just need some source of supply or supplies as byproducts, and this is really going to be I think the best one. I don't think we're going to have tens of millions of tons of rock that have tungsten in it, but what if we have a few million? That's big for tungsten, right? And then we have a huge deposit of copper, gold, and silver with it. And so all this will get processed together. And the nice thing is it will come out at the beginning because it starts right at surface, right? So it's in the first years of the mine.
So I know a little bit about tungsten, and obviously it's used in tank, ammunition and such things like that. So it's used by the military extensively. That's the main place it's consumed. And I know the price is, I don't know, $15 to $20 a pound ballpark. So basically we take the copper price and we can do like a 3 or 4x computation
Exactly.
to sort of get comp grades. What else can you tell us about tungsten, this sort of obscure metal?
Steel. I mean, it's needed in the steel industry, right? So we all need that, and the world's growing. So the boom is big for tungsten. This is the first hard rock source of tungsten ever discovered in Colombia, right? Which is also amazing. And so the government, this current government, loves it, right? Because it's a critical mineral, and their focus is on strategic or critical mineral production. And so, we're looking forward to getting this thing to market in the next few years, when this mine gets built, once we advance it through resource and studies, or someone else does if we sell it.
So you've drilled into that top layer there at Apollo with a number of holes. Do you feel like you have a pretty good idea of the scale there now?
We do, but there's still, this program, I think there's still another almost 20 holes to come out. That are either awaiting assayed or being drilled or will be drilled. We expect the drilling portion to finish, in the next 2 months. So we need all that data. It's a funny thing because intuitively you might think when you have a system that's 1.2 kilometers, you'd say, oh, the most densely drilled part should be the shallowest. In our case, that wasn't the situation because of the topography. So the actual top 150 meters was relatively poorly drilled. Okay, and it was better drilled from 150 down to 650, meters below surface. So we're making sure that top part is well drilled, and that is what is happening. And we have smaller rigs in doing that. They're quick, and it's moving quickly. The other thing too is with the tungsten. I think the grade is better than we thought, because when we first discovered it 2 years ago, we discovered it through conventional fire assaying, so standard gold silver assaying. And you're supposed to assay for tungsten using XRF assaying from a lab. And so we're now doing that. And normally you would see a grade bump, if you look around the world in that situation. I'm hoping we're going to end up seeing that in the overall grade. So, if we get 0.2 or 0.3% tungsten in the part that has it, that's a lot, right? As you said, 3 to 4 times the price of copper.
So yeah, so let's say it's 0.2% tungsten average grade in that top 100 or so meters there at Apollo, and that will be an open pit eventually, obviously. And I guess the next question would be, what are the recoveries or ballpark?
For tungsten's going to be between 70 and 80%. We put out one press release on recoveries. It was like literally the first pass test with no refinement, and I think we announced 72%. So I'm going to guess we're going to get somewhere between 75 and 80 once you tinker with it, which we're doing now, by the way. That work's underway. So and that's standard. But the nice thing about it is it's so coarse, right? And you can see it under a blue light as well. So you could, not that we're going to do this, but if you just wanted to go in and mine tungsten and leave the rest, you could separate it by way of a jig. Like, that's how easy it is to get the clumps of it. It's the fine stuff you just don't get, and it goes out to waste, and it's inert.
Okay. So we'll get some more tungsten
Lots of
results. Okay, so there's 20 holes still pending.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So you'll see those consistently between now and the end of the North American summertime.
So yeah, so that'll be great because we'll really get a full idea of the zone. Also, June 9th, you announced a new vice president of mining. That's
Correct.
Interesting. That seems like a bit of an evolution for the company. So tell us about that, and who is this person?
Well, okay, so look, his name is Raphael. He's an amazing, talented mine planner, okay, operator, okay, but mine planner. My view is this: as a junior company, okay, if you're going to build a mine or you want to sell your company, right, there are two facets that you need to have the skill set for internally. Okay, one is resource estimation, and the second is mine planning. The rest of it can be done with external consultants. You don't need a mine planner when you're a startup junior, because you don't have a deposit yet, right? Once you feel you have something that will be a mine, it's very important to get this person in early, because just like resource estimation, mine planning also requires many iterations to get it right. Right? If you look at our industry, you know this, you've seen it over and over, as have your viewers. Most projects have CapEx blowouts, right? That is generally due to bad planning, okay? And because they don't give themselves enough time to start this process early and iterate more and keep iterating. Because once you start construction, you can't change course. Right, and that's where the blowouts come, because you find the problems, right? Metallurgy, the mine design, etc. This is what we continue to see, in our industry. I mean, we just saw what's the name of Ross Beatty's producer?
EQX.
Equinox. I mean, they just announced Greenstone. Oops, right? Greenstone, significantly less annual production, much higher AISC. That's bad planning. That's from not having done this early enough. Okay, that's what happens. Okay, so we're early, and that is key, so that we have a legitimate chance of delivering a project that will get built on time, on budget, or within rough range of on budget, and do well. It's critical. So that's why he is on board. We already have the in-house resource estimation capability. We have 2 estimators that we've trained for years as part of our team. Now we have the mine planning.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that is taking the company to the next level. So let's get an idea of the drill program. So last I heard, you're up to 8 rigs, but maybe that's
9.
right.
We're at 9.
Okay, so tell us where the rigs are and what the objective of the drilling is right now.
So I think, as I said to you before, this is a rare project, right? You don't need me to tell you that. You could just come visit the project, and the metal is so widespread. So there is a big discovery at Apollo, and this is the Guayabales, within the Guayabales Project. Let's start there. Okay. We have a goal to make a new discovery, okay, this year, right? I don't know if we're going to hit that goal, but I think we have a better than average chance for a mining company to make another big discovery, and that will put this whole project into the moon, right? Apollo is going to be a multi-million ounce gold equivalent system. I'm comfortable saying that. We don't have a resource estimate yet, but there's no question on that. Anyone can do basic math and figure that out. We want to find another one, okay? And so we have 5 rigs at Apollo advancing it, okay, as we speak. We have 2 rigs that are just now turning on new targets. So one is called ME, right? The other rig is on its way to a target called the Knife. And shortly thereafter, one of those rigs will move to a target named X. So that's 3 new targets that will be drilled and hopefully have assay results by September at the latest, possibly August. Okay, I hope we'll make a discovery on one of those. There's a series of other targets that haven't been announced that have been generated by a combination of ground gravity survey and surface work, geochemistry and rock chip sampling, that we plan to drill at least 2 more of those this year. Okay, so at least 5 new targets to be drilled this year, right between now and year end, with the aim of a new discovery. Now we're still missing 2 of the 9 rigs. They are at San Antonio project. Okay, so we talked about San Antonio a little bit last time, I believe, but we've made a porphyry discovery. We found the smoke, not the fire. Okay, so we found porphyry, copper gold porphyry fluid intruding the country rock. We need to find the source rock of that. Okay, but all of that is situated in a target called Pound, where we've previously announced, results between 600 and 700 meters at 0.4 to 0.5 grams per ton gold equivalent. Okay, and now we just announced just shy of 300 meters of about 0.5 gold and 0.2 copper, 0.2% copper in grams per ton gold. And so I think and we have this huge alteration zone over the almost 3 kilometers that we've mapped. It's open everywhere. And I think we have a chance for both a gold deposit here in big scale and a copper gold system, I hope, in giant scale. And we're going for it here. So I mentioned up to 5 targets being drilled at Guayabales, multiple as well at San Antonio, with the aim of finding one or both of those kinds of systems that can evolve into a mineable deposit. The important point is this: if we go on the assumption that we have a mine, we're going to have a mine at Apollo, which I think is fait accompli. I think we all know that, everyone in the market. You're going to build a plant for that, okay? And remember, we have copper in the top, call it half, of Apollo in 2 of the 4 metal zones, okay? So you're going to have a flotation circuit already, okay? The distance between the edge of the Guayabales project and the San Antonio project is only 2 miles, edge to edge in the concessions. And basically what's separating them is the Pan American Highway. So they're both sitting on or close to the Pan Am Highway. What would be, you can easily move anything that would get mined in the future from San Antonio to a plant that's being built for the Guayabales project, where the power lines are already sitting, highway and people. This is an amazing setup. And so if you already have your infrastructure in place that will need some tweaking, maybe a low-grade gold deposit could get mined here just by itself. Let's forget about the copper for a minute. Why not if you already have a mill sitting there, right? We see things like Cote Lake. These are low-grade gold deposits, giant low-grade, or Artemis just put Blackwater, into production at ultra low grade. These things seem to work in the current gold price environment, and we're sitting on the power lines with infrastructure on the highway. Like, amazing.
The Blackwater story is really incredible, and just the way that stock continues to trade. I mean, over 5 billion market cap in Canada today, and like you said, I mean, it's not super high grade. It's big, but it's not super high grade. But it works. I mean, it's got strong economics.
And so we've got a chance at that, plus a chance at a copper gold porphyry, which I believe from the data, it's very limited data at this point, but from the data, has a chance, if we find it to be high grade, because the amount of gold associated to copper, they're always in a ratio to each other in porphyries, is extraordinarily high on the gold side. So if we can find, instead of 0.2 copper, if we can find an area of 0.4 or 0.4 for 0.5% copper, you could be looking, if the ratio holds, at over a gram gold associated with that. That's very high grade for porphyry.
Oh yeah, I mean,
right?
that would be incredible.
And sitting at infrastructure, there's nothing you drive right there. So this is a big prize, or a big carrot that we're drilling. And so you can see the aggression you can hear how aggressive we're going to be. And I'm hoping that we're going to sit here at December and talk about the new big discovery or sooner. Right?
I love porphyry exploration. I love the San Antonio targets. I want to ask you more about that, but let's go back to Guayabales. And so that's interesting, because I wasn't completely aware of all the new targets. I knew about a couple of them, but the one that sort of catches my eye is the one, well, I guess two, the knife target, I guess, first, because I don't know anything about it, and it looks like a really big step out from the Apollo area.
Okay, let's take it. It's a shot. Let's start with that. Okay, it's a challenging target, but it has to be drilled. Why? So Apollo sits in a bowl. Okay, so it's surrounded with a slope with a bowl in the center. The reason that a bowl exists there is it's formed geologically from the alteration, eating over millions of years, eating the sulfide in the rock and sinking it in. Okay, we had very limited outcrop in the Apollo bowl, but we did have some area where we found 10 square meters was all we had, where we made the discovery, and then we drilled. The perimeter of the bowl, where you actually have surface exposure because you're at a peak, we have late stage porphyry related vein mineralization, so gold, silver, lead, zinc in soils and in rock chips. Okay, let's move to the knife. Okay, there is a bowl that is bigger than Apollo sitting there. Okay, the perimeter of the bowl has the same geochemical signature as Apollo. The problem is the center has too much historical landslide volcanic ash material that we can't really get a proper sample of what the soil would look like there, the bedrock, because it's too deep to go through with a hand auger rig. So we're taking a shot on the hope that the bowl itself was formed geologically like Apollo. It was deformed, the ground, from the alteration like Apollo, and that there's hopefully something big sitting in the middle. One or two holes is going to tell us yes or no. Okay.
So how deep do you have to get through the volcanic ash to get into the
It's only 12 to 15 meters. That's it.
Oh, okay.
But when you're trying to sample, the maximum, the strongest, you're a big guy, okay? You're a strong guy. The strongest, the most you would be able to hand auger is probably 30 feet, 35 feet. And then it's just too hard to do it.
Really
and
hard.
that's the problem, right? With a drill rig, you could go through it like butter. That stuff's unconsolidated. It's nothing, right? But so what we're trying to do is basically start at the edge of the bowl, let's step back, but drill across, get across the bowl at a shallow angle. What is it? Let's see what it is. If it's a body that we're going to be excited about, we'll know pretty quickly.
So this is the first core drilling into this target ever?
Ever. Nothing's been done here. It's virgin beyond virgin ground. Okay. The other one is X.
X,
okay?
yeah.
Okay. So X has more information associated to it. We have outcrop of about 100 by 100 meters of breccia that is mineralized with gold silver. Abutting it directly north is a copper moly anomaly in soil. Okay, that was sort of what Apollo looked like before drilling. We had a copper moly anomaly abutting, not within, a gold silver anomaly. And we have outcrop where we've been able to actually channel sample in places and see that it has continuous mineralization. I wish we had more exposure, we don't. But that thing looks, that's an exciting target. And what I would add is we've just recently completed a ground gravity survey. This is the most exciting piece of geophysics that I've seen in my career. Okay, not the actual technology, because it's very basic and simple, but usually I find geophysics doesn't work and I'm not a fan of it. Okay, however, what we did with the ground gravity is it's cheap. Let's go do ground gravity on top of Apollo. Let's start there. And then we discovered another breccia body at the northwest side of Plutus, which we announced results from early last year, okay? And so let's go cover those areas. Let's get the results and see if we see a gravity signature. Because in theory, you should, obviously, a breccia has its matrix filled with sulfides, so the specific gravity is heavier, right? So it's heavier than country rock. So we did this, and guess what? We came up with gravity highs. Okay, so then we gridded the rest of the property. It didn't take long. It took 2 weeks to do it. It's very simple technology, walking, right? And we've done this, and we're just getting our preliminary results in, but we have a series of gravity highs, none of which have been drilled. Okay, and what was interesting about it at X, so the X target is the most intense alteration that we've seen on the whole project to date. Okay, so the alteration, it's like bleached white. At surface level, there was no gravity anomaly when we saw it. So we said, uh-oh, clearly it's not there. But then one of our experts, Dick Tosdal, who's one of the best porphyry experts in the world, said, wait a minute, guys, the alteration would eat sulfide shallow, get a depth slice, 100 and 200 meters below surface and see if you have the anomaly. And sure enough, bang, we've got a gravity high right there, right? The alteration is probably eaten the sulfide out of the system shallow because it's bleached white. I mean, it's just wild how white it is. So we're really excited by that target because it's got all the ingredients, and that'll be drilled after the knife. And ME has a big gravity anomaly just to the southeast of where we did the sampling as well. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So this seems to work, right?
And,
because
the X target is in between the Marmato gold mine and Apollo, so just logically it might make sense there would be something
there's
in the
something
middle.
there, and it's never seen a drill hole. And
Yeah.
we've got our permissions to drill the pads. The pad construction is about to start. Doesn't take long. We just got to bring water, from our licensed water source there. That's it. Just get it, pump it there, and then we're good to go. And so knife first, that second, and both those we'll see drilling before the end of July.
Fantastic. Okay, and then moving across the highway to San Antonio and talking porphyry. So I got to ask a few questions here. So
fire away.
There's a big soil anomaly to the northeast there, and it looks like it doesn't have any drill. It doesn't even have a name. Are you going to do anything with that?
Yes, all of it is getting work. So we have 3 ground teams, right? Our hunters, our greenfield teams. So one of them is working in areas of San Antonio, advancing it. But as we speak, okay, we have 4 drill ready targets. Okay, one is the first one, which we just announced the results from, is called Pound, which is currently being drilled with the 2 rigs. Shortly, we're going to be moving one of the rigs to the northwest of it, which is named Real. So these targets are all named after currencies around the world. Okay. We have 2 targets south, which need to be drilled next. One is called Euro, and the other one is called Cop and Cop West. Call it Cop. Okay, those are drill ready. Okay, so each of those is going to be drilled. All of them are exciting. All of them are part of this big alteration halo. And, and what I love about this project is we have only 4 holes with assays announced to date in pound. Okay, and they're quite spaced apart. And even when you don't hit, we don't find copper, we don't find a copper gold porphyry, we still have this giant low grade gold halo everywhere. And I love that because that's not usual, right? Usually the pyrite halo of porphyries is very extremely low grade to barren. Somehow here there's quite a lot of gold in it. Okay, so that could become a deposit, especially if it's overprinted by these late stage high grade sheeted veinlets like we have at Guayabales. We see them here too. They're different, but it's the same thing. They're porphyry related late stage veinlets. We see them here. And so if we can find an area just of that low grade gold with the veinlets, we might have a gold deposit. And obviously we're hunting for the copper gold system. We love this thing. I mean, it's big. It needs holes. Porphyry exploration is not easy to start with, because the aspect ratio of porphyries is generally 3 to 5 times longer vertically than it is laterally. So once you find it, it's not hard to drill at all, but it's finding it that's the challenge. And once you got it, it's fast.
Yeah, once you get your bearings into it and you're able to get the zonation, it's a piece of cake. It just requires a lot of drilling to fully outline the tonnage. But yeah, it can be very tricky to hone into like the core of it. And from my experience, companies drilling at the wrong orientation can be 100 meters away and completely miss the whole thing, basically. So
100%.
yeah, you've had some nice sniffs there, and I agree with Tosdal. You gotta be close. Whether that's 100 meters or 500 meters, we don't know. Yeah. So the interpretation is it's a trend coming from the southeast to the northwest, and is that interpretation just guided by the soils and the alteration at surface, or like you said, did you do gravity? Is there IP work here?
We have IP, we have magnetics and IP, but it's first of all, the trend in the middle calcabout is generally that direction.
I see.
Okay, so most deposits are Marmotto's in that direction, Guayabales in that direction, so it only makes sense that we're following the same trend, because it really is part of the same porphyry complex, as Marmotto and Guayabales, just a little bit different. But these complexes go on a long way, and is it one giant porphyry? I don't think so. I think there's going to be a series of them in there, and we got to find the sweet spots, and that's what I hope we'll discover and we'll get mined.
Okay. So I see in the news release that hole 12 was underway at the time of this, but I think you moved in another rig. Can you tell us about that?
We've drilled hole 12, we've drilled hole 13, and we're drilling 14 and 15 as we speak. All four of those holes will then be batched and sent together for assays. So I can tell you that hole 12 don't love. I don't know if we hit anything. I think we hit something. I could see the core, but it's visual. We didn't find the guts. But this is the point. It's to miss to find it, right? Hole 13 looks somewhat interesting in places, actually, right? But more for gold. 14 and 15 are new. They're underway, so I can't comment too far because I haven't seen enough to make a educated guess. But the point is, by drilling these holes, is to show us where not to go next. Right, and so it's looking to me, if I'm going to guess in our team, that the copper gold portion of the porphyry complex, if it's intact, is north of where we've drilled, right, northwest of where we drilled, and that's where we're getting pointed towards. And so we're going to now, once 14 and 15 are finished, we're going to construct. We're about to start new pads in the north, one to test Real, which that could be the center of this all to the northwest, we don't know, and one to test north of hole 11, which made the copper gold porphyry discovery, and come back the other direction, but get further north.
I see. So get closer to the Real target, like sort of in between there. And there's a pretty prominent soil anomaly there at the edge of Pound.
Right, and then the problem is there's Inningbright, right, which is just a shallow cover as you go north, right? So your soils become totally ineffective. So we suspect that the system is under that. That's probably, in this region, in this area, that's probably going to only be 30 or 50 meters thick in reality, or something like that when you drill through it. But it's superficial from water, but it masks a lot, right?
One thing I've learned about porphyry exploration the last few years here in the modern day, basically all the easy ones were found in the last 30 years. And the ones that are left to be discovered are covered and hidden in some way, shape, or form. And that, it could be hidden by 30 meters of volcanic ash or some other dirt cover, or it could be 300 meters covered, and you have to go really deep and you have to use strong tools to see deep into the earth, like the Typhoon technology by Friedland. You got to use stuff like that to find some of these things. So if you could find a new porphyry under 50 meters of cover, that would be pretty incredible.
That's the hope. And, we've got gold starting right at the surface in drill holes, so why not, right? I mean, it's clearly the system itself penetrating right up to the surface in this area.
So with these holes of 12, 13, 14, and 15, that's 4 holes. That'll give you a lot of information in terms of maybe zonation and where you might be in the system, even if it's not in the guts of it, right?
Absolutely, and where to vector. I mean, this is about vectoring. If you look at Quebradona, by Anglo Gold Ashanti, their copper gold porphyry discovery in Colombia, I think it took them 23 or 24 holes. Right. Yeah. And they've got almost 1 billion tons of amazing grade porphyry as a result. Right. But they were missing it and they weren't far away from it. Any of those holes, it was, all within 500 meters in some way. It's just it's finding it. Once you have it, it's simple.
Right. Okay. And then final question, we're in the June is generally not a great month for the junior mining sector. If we look back at history, but obviously the gold price is also at 3,400. Just kind of interested in getting your feel for where we are in this bull market environment and sort of how you think the rest of this year might play out.
I think we're going into summer doldrums. Okay, what you're alluding to. It's going to be a shorter summer doldrums. I know they sell in May and go away. You need to do that. So it's probably now roughly we could go 2 weeks ago, and I suspect it's going to last through July. But I do believe that mid-August, generally is a great time to buy, and I think we're going to have that phenomenon again this year. So, if I was, which I do invest, I'd be looking at names I like, in the early part of August to start building positions in, because there's a lot of challenges globally, lots of demand for gold. It's just starting in the Western Hemisphere to be acquired, right? I mean, the ETFs are finally not bleeding. On a daily basis, they're improving, especially the GLD, and now we're even starting to see some inflows into the GDX and GDXJ for the first time, and I can't even remember how long. You might know better than me, but it's almost forever, it feels like. So it's early days, right? And things like, I know they're minor points, but you saw, the other day when gold dumped, Newmont was up on the day, right? For no apparent
up
reason.
Today again.
Yeah, there you go, right? So there you go. This is that is the first stock that any generalist that wants to invest in gold is going to buy. It is not Barrick anymore. Barrick is totally out of favor and shrinking, right? Agnico, our partner, our investor, is awesome, but they're not the big S&P 500, Newmont. And Newmont is by far the largest producer on an ounce basis, in the world for gold. So that's a really good sign. We see juniors percolating. I mean, we're seeing financings, I think, almost every day now, $2 to $4 or $5 million financing, plus a few bigger ones and higher quality projects. And we're starting, right? This is a bull market, but, so I think you're going to have your last opportunity in quite a while, to build positions in inexpensive things over the summertime and take advantage of it if that's what you're interested in doing.
Yeah, I think that's well said. The financing window is definitely open now. We're seeing that in a big way. But for juniors, you still need to drill holes. So even though it's like a bull market environment and Newmont is doing well, to turn the needle on, like an early stage junior, you need to drill some good intercepts. And
you need to discover.
Hopefully we'll get some new discoveries in the second half of this year. A lot of drill programs are underway now, including with your company. A lot of results will be coming out through the second half of the year, and that'll be really interesting to watch. Also, one more thing to point out is that the producers will report Q2 earnings in about 5 to 6 weeks, and those earnings should absolutely be spectacular. And that kind of lines up with what you're talking about in August. So that definitely for viewers, mark that on your calendar. I think August would be a great time. Early August would be a great time to be in this sector. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you. Always good to chat. We'll catch up soon.
Cheers.
Take care.